What's up, everyone? This is the third video in the series going over how we can change our lives with options. In this video, we're going to cover, a pretty cliche thing, but arguably the most important thing when it comes to mastering your trading and actually making money, and that's support and resistance. Talked about in the first video, the market moves based off of psychology of others. One way that we can visually see this is through the use of support and resistance. So while it's pretty cliche, we're going to put in this video, how we can use support and resistance to actually make money and be more confident in our trades. So first thing first, support and resistance. Support is a level where we have bounced from. There's people want this at this level, right? So here, 357 on SPY, looking here is a support level. Then we have support here as well at 363.92. The more times a level acts as either support or resistance, the more impactful or more important that is. If it acts as both support and resistance multiple times, it's a huge level, and taking over that level is going to end up being who can be in control. Is it going to be bulls in control or bears in control if they can control and keep that level? Support and resistance, they're also commonly called supply and demand zones. Same difference, but I like support and resistance. It just makes more sense. I don't have to think about the economical side. I feel like I'm in an econ class if I'm trying to think about where my supply and my demand are, and that's too much thinking for me. On the flip side of support, we have resistance. So resistance, the opposites, where sellers are going to step in or where people are going to take profit. And we see here, we had a big one today at this 389, 389.3 level, very big here, but we also can see how it's been acting as support here, resistance, resistance, turned into support over here. So we know that's a pretty big level. I'm looking here at the 65-minute time frame. There's 6.5 hours in a trading day, right? That it's not divisible by 60. It is by 65 in terms of minutes. So that's why I use it, and it just kind of helps with level-based stuff. Now let's move to how the hell we can use these levels. So as we see here, that 389.27, 389.3, I'll move this up, 389.3 is a big level for tomorrow. So before every day I go through my list of tickers, and I look at which tickers are near support and resistance. SPY and Qs are two that I like to monitor and trade daily. So looking at here on the 65, right? If I'm gonna look for levels tomorrow, we finished here 394.64. All right, so one that first off sticks right off is this retest here at 395.96. So 396, that works. That's a resistance level. In my mind, when I'm preparing for tomorrow, that's what I'm going to watch pretty closely, as it's been tested multiple times. As we see here, it was a support, another support, turned resistance, and then ultimately before we fell, big resistance level there. So that's one, that I'll note. On a second, this level here is absolutely massive, which is that high 390.47, so 390.5. I'm actually going to remove this and move this up here to that 390.5. It looks to me like a bigger level than that 389 level because we have touched it multiple more times. Big support here, big support resistance, kind of chopped around that area right here. Hit right here again, acting as support. Our retest before we fell, resistance here on the big gap up this morning, then turned into support here. So that's a big level to me. And one thing that I like to do, it kind of helps me, is just, instead of just the line, I like the box. And the box helps me visualize a little bit better that I know in this zone, I'm going to look for certain opportunities. And that is the part I really want to touch on, and how we can use this tomorrow to make more money and understand where I'm looking to buy calls versus where I'm looking to buy puts. So if I flip over here to the 5-minute, I like to trade off the 5-minute. And a reason for that, the 1 minute is just a lot of indecision, too choppy for me in my opinion. And then the 5 I find is a perfect middle ground. The 10, 15, if I'm going to hold something longer, I'll look at those for sure. And I like to monitor it every single time, no matter what trade I'm in, off of those levels. But the 5-minute I found to be a very, very great middle ground. One thing with the 5-minute, I'll talk about this in a video I do over confirmation and retest. absolutely always enter on retest. And sometimes, I miss on that perfect entry, but I get the bigger move just waiting for a simple retest. So in this case, if we just look at today's price action. So early on, we have this move here. Nothing is set. In this case, we have a gap up. Maybe we don't have these levels set, or they're from a while ago. We want to recheck them. Okay, a level here, that I noticed right away is that top wick. Say this price action has not happened. If I'm looking for a retest to enter into a calls position, in this case, we had a big gap up. See, bulls are still pushing here pretty well. So I'm going to use the wick of the candle that ultimately fell as my resistance level. One thing with support and resistance, what was previously resistance turns into support, especially when we are in trend. As we see today, we get this perfect retest, get the breakout here, retest, great entry spot here, nice bullish candle. We'll also go over that in another video. And then we get that retest. But, this is where I'm going to look to enter calls on a retest or at support levels. So in this case, our resistance turned support. This is now support. Very good indicator here for me. This is a potential good entry spot. On the flip side, earlier in the day, I would also made note of this zone in here as a very big support zone. So if we don't break through this zone here, or we fall and we start to collapse, I'm looking in this zone to buy calls. On the flip side, I'm looking at resistance in order to buy puts. Go back to the 65. So in this case, where am I looking to buy puts in here, right? First one, obviously here when we fall through, we finally retest it, and then we fall again, right? Here's another great place to buy puts, another great place to buy puts. I want to buy puts near or at resistance, and I want to buy calls near or at support. That's, huge. And I think that is one thing that a lot of newer traders, and I know I myself did for sure, struggle with, was trying to buy contracts in the middle of a zone. I don't want to buy contracts in the middle of a zone, right? I want to buy contracts at support or at resistance once we have a retest. In this case, perfect example here today, early on, set this resistance for the day, turns into support here. I have a bullish engulfing candle, tweezer bottom action here, and we do see that push up throughout the rest of the day. Support and resistance are ones that you can master with enough practice, enough screen time, which is another cliche thing to say, but it really does help. And once you start to feel comfortable with that, it does make huge differences. There's some people who trade solely off of just supply and demand, just support and resistance, and it works well. But I definitely think it helps with conviction and also knowing where I'm looking to enter and having that preset mindset. I'm going to enter here if I get these right formations on the day of the trade. So before the trade's happening, I already know where I want to enter both calls and puts, and I'm looking for those next levels after the support and resistance. The more times a level is hit and acts as support and resistance, the more significant. They're going to be more significant, as well as the higher time frame is more significant than these lower time frames. So these 65-minute support and resistance here are going to mean way more than the 5-minute or the 15-minute. For actually, learning support and resistance, what I did when I first started was I would go look at 65 minutes or even start in the daily chart. Start on the daily chart and mark out levels that are hit multiple times. Then see how those act the next day or whenever they come in contact with those levels. I try to stay, relatively close to where price ended, just because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, and I just want to see, what's happening. I don't want to see all these lines. It's not Crayola. I don't need a coloring book, right? But yeah, go on, the 65, 15, even the 5. I would say the 65 or those longer time frames is great to practice with, because the 5 can just be a bit choppy. And those levels, there's going to be a lot of them. So finding those key levels, the ones that are actually important, hit multiple times, super important. And then just, see how price action, how buyers and sellers are reacting to those levels in no time. It's something that just comes with it. But where that edge is gained is having a plan ahead of time. If I'm entering, say I'm trying to top shoot some puts here, right? And I enter into this put position here. talked about this in an entire video over risk management stop losses. I'm going to set my stop loss on this initial entry. I see this, long upper wick. Here would probably be a better entry for sure. But I'm going to set my stop at the top of these candles and then let it ride. Move that stop loss up as I start to get into profit. In this case, not making much here because we are going against trend. If I buy here, we have that earlier in the day resistance turn support. Setting my stop at the bottom here. Can use a percent base stop. I really have become accustomed to using levels of stops now, paired with a premium chart. Really nice, and it helps me a lot more with conviction because I've noticed that sometimes I get stopped out way earlier than I want. So if I'm entering here on this big bullish candle, my stop loss is set below the premium here on our entry candle. Last thing I'll say on this, support and resistance is definitely very important, and it's one that we can understand for sure. It just takes some time, some practice, but it's what you do with that knowledge and how you're able to put it into your trading. It's a very useful tool when it comes to trading. It's really the basis of most strategies, most systems that are used by retail traders.